Welcome to the People Leaders Podcast, the audio resource for managers and business leaders creating high-performing teams. Join leadership and team development experts Jen and Michelle Turkelson each week as they explore both subjects from every angle. Through practical tips, valuable insights, and compelling interviews with leadership experts around the world, you'll learn how to bring out the best in your staff and how to give your best as a leader.
So let's talk about above the line, below the line. It was really inspired by a book that we read several years ago. When I say several, like well over 10.
Over a decade.
I know. And the book was called Walking the Talk. And the author was Carolyn Taylor. And this book talked about cultural transformation and what it takes for building a culture of success. And one of the tools that she used was this above the line, below the line. And so from that point on, you and I just kind of like deep dived into this, and we use it pretty much in so many of our programs.
We do in so many different ways. And I thought, what a good opportunity to share with people listening to this on what it is and just some examples. And so let's just start with a very practical example. And if I could get everybody to think about, behaviours that they see in operating in their team. So we'll just talk behaviours at the moment. And what are some of the behaviours that you see operating in your team from people who you describe as being open and positive? These are the people who are collaborative, they take ownership and, they do what they say they're going to do. So it's have a think about all those behaviours that you see operating from positive and open-minded, constructive people and write them down at the top of the page. Then draw a line under that. Now flip your mind to those behaviours that you see operating that you would describe as being closed and negative. There could be excuses, there could be defensiveness in the behaviour. So not positive, constrictive and negative. So have a think about those behaviours and write those down underneath the line. This line that you have drawn is what we call the line of choice. Above the line are all those behaviours of constructive, people, and then those behaviours that you see below the line are all those behaviours that you don't want to see much of. And so, you think, oh my God, that was just so ridiculously simple. The thing is, that's the starting point, isn't it, Jan?
Yeah.
Because now it's about having a conversation. Now that we know what above the line, we've just defined the problem. We've defined the issue. And once you've done that, you can go anywhere. Yeah. And so what we've done is we've defined what good looks like, which is above the line, because we have a choice to walk the line, go above the line, or step below the line. And that's just a very simple example of how you might introduce this above the line, below the line concept with your team or with your group of managers or just for yourself, thinking about, my behaviours when I'm in that, open-minded, positive, accountability frame.
And so one of the things that we've also done when we're looking at personality, when we talk about different personality types and what are they like when we are above the line, and what is it like, or what does it look like when we're operating below the line? So just for an example, and I'll take an extrovert because I'm an extrovert. So above the line behaviour, if I'm in my love variety, I speak well, I articulate, I don't interrupt, and I express myself in a way that is optimistic. Now, if I'm operating below the line, as an extrovert, I might be superficial. I'll interrupt. I'll talk more or be really verbose. And again, that's another example of seeing how a behaviour, because this is a behavioural model, can play out. And what we're actually seeing is that when you are operating above the line, you are operating at your best. And that's why performance goes up and you're more effective. When you operate below the line, that is when your performance is really, hampered because you're not at your best. Now, for whatever reason that is, it could be stress, it could be the environment, could be lots of things, but there is that awareness and perhaps choice point that we can make.
Exactly. And that's what this does in such a very crystal clear way, is gives you awareness of how you and all team members are operating above the line or below the line. Another quick example. Now, if you want more examples of how to introduce it, how we have used it, how we've seen other teams use it in so many different ways, then you'd sign up for the toolkit that we've got. But we just want to, we like sharing, don't we, Jen? And so another example, just thinking of a team that we've worked with, and we ran the leadership program. At the end, we introduced the above the line, below the line in one of the modules. We had a big poster up on the wall with above the line, below the line. Now, at the end of the program, the managers said, we want to keep that poster in our training room. And so what was happening is people would walk in and they'd see, above the line, below the line, and they see some little examples that were in this poster that we have, and they themselves would introduce how they decided to use it, saying, that was a bit below the line, Jim. And just in that way, they creating a culture change, and they just use that artifact, that model, that poster as a reference point for them.
Yeah, I remember coaching one of the groups a couple of weeks ago, and they talked about this model again, what was your favourite model? And they talked about that. And one of them was saying that he's introduced, being on the line. So you're treading on the line right now. We're just walking the line. So what would it take for us to kind of nudge it a little bit? So, everyone uses this model. What I love about it is that you can use this model in so many ways, and that's why it's so effective. And in our program, we take you through all the different elements of, team performance and the way in which you can be a lot more effective by using this as a tool. So, by the end of the program, you have got a jam-packed toolkit.
Yeah, without a doubt. No, very good, Jen.
Yeah. Okay, everyone. Yeah. So we really invite you to have a look at the sales page, go on to peopleleaders.com.au, and even if this tool is of interest to you, just start using what we've just said. Just start practicing it, because as people leaders, you don't have to get it right. I know, sometimes it might be clunky. Sometimes just using it in a meeting, what would it take for this meeting to operate above the line or below the line, and start the conversation, because that's what it's about, isn't it?
All about the conversation.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Bye.
Ciao.
You've been listening to the People Leaders Podcast with Michelle and Jan Turkelson. For show notes and other free resources, please visit us at peopleleaderspodcast.com. Do you know someone else who could benefit from cutting-edge leadership and management techniques? Please take a moment to share this and other episodes via your podcast app, email, or social media channels. Each share helps us fulfill our goals of reducing workplace stress and increasing job satisfaction for leaders, managers, and their teams worldwide. The People Leaders Podcast is brought to you by the Experts On Air Podcast Network.